So explain to us, what do you actually do?
So I solve HMRC-sized problems. Is the way I can put it. It's the simplest way. We call ourselves tax investigations experts, tax dispute experts, tax controversy.
What's the difference for our viewers between tax evasion and tax avoidance?
No easy questions today. So tax evasion is effectively something that's completely illegal. So
Do you think the middle class don't have access to the right investment advice and the right tax planning advice?
I mean, it depends on which. I think parts of the country, communities, your background. Obviously, people like us whose families have moved into this country that 1, 2, 3, 4 generations back, or like my case, I'm literally first generation in a way. Like, it's different, but I think overall I would agree with that statement that people don't have that right level of access to the professionals. I think it's changing.
Welcome back to Evolve and Inspire, the podcast where we dive deep into the stories of remarkable individuals who've transformed challenges into triumphs. I'm your host, Huzaifa, and today I'm thrilled to have with me someone whose journey from the inside of HMRC to becoming a champion for taxpayers is absolutely fascinating. Meet Salman Anwar, the founder and director of ADL Tax, but more importantly, someone who's turned his insider knowledge of the tax system into a mission to help others navigate what can often feel like an impossible battle with HMRC. Salman spent years working within HMRC's large business and fraud investigation services, learning the system from the inside out. But instead of staying comfortable, he made the bold decision to cross over to the other side, using expertise to protect and defend the very people he once investigated. Today, we're going to explore how Salman built ADL Tax from the ground up, his philosophy of keeping costs transparent and outcomes client-focused, and what drives someone to take on one of the most feared government departments in the UK. This is a story about courage, expertise, and the power of using your knowledge for good. Salman, welcome to Evolve and Inspire.
Zaifa, thank you. Thank you for having me.
How you doing?
Alhamdulillah, doing amazing.
Alhamdulillah. Take me back to the beginning. How were you at school? What were your plans at school?
Oh, that's a very, I think I was saying to you earlier, it's a rabbit hole and a half. So to start with, I wasn't actually born in this country. I didn't grow up in this country.
Oh, did you not?
No. So I was born in Pakistan.
Yeah.
I was about 12 years old when my parents moved here. I used to visit. All of my mum's side of the family is here. But yeah, I didn't grow up here up until secondary school started. And when I came here, basically, year 7 was about to start. We came in the summer that year. So yeah, secondary school, I started. Grew up in inner city Birmingham, let's just say. You can call it all sorts of other things. But yeah, school, I wanted to, when I was growing up, I wanted to be a doctor.
Okay. I bet your parents did as well, probably.
My parents have always been quite chilled out with that kind of thing. Alhamdulillah, I sort of I was good at maths growing up. Your typical sort of Asian thing. And then in secondary school, I started to get good at some of the other subjects. I started to do really well academically. And at that point, my parents were quite like, do what you want to do the best you can. But I was never a hard worker as such. I was just kind of like, I got by pretty much a natural talent up until school finished. And then I started to do a bit more. But my parents were always quite chill about that kind of thing.
What was the culture change like growing up in Pakistan to being in Birmingham? Probably not much change.
I think back then it was probably still a bit of a change, but we're talking late 90s is when we moved to the UK. It was a shock to the system. Took me a while. I mean, alhamdulillah, my parents were always focused on education. I knew English. It wasn't something I spoke. It wasn't nowhere near my first language, but over there you call them English medium schools and whatnot, and that's where my parents sent us to study, me and my sister. So alhamdulillah, language was a barrier, but not a huge one. Within a year or two, they gave us some intensive, classes, so got okay with it. But like in terms of the weather, everything else was a shock to the system. But I think having visited beforehand helped to kind of acclimatize.
How was it like trying to make friends?
You're taking me back to a deep dark place here now. I didn't know this was a therapy session. I think when I was growing up, so the way I look at it, I do like to reflect on these things more now, sort of as I get older than I probably have before. But like I find it not difficult to make friends and stuff now. But I think back when I was growing up, I wasn't that social person, and then the culture change did make it difficult. But I actually, one of my best friends, even to this day, really is somebody who was in the same situation. He'd just come to the country
Okay.
as well, so we were together in secondary school in that way, and he became my best friend because we were both in the same kind of bring you up to scratch classes, all that sort of stuff, and we just resonated. We were going on the same journey. But then, I think as I progressed through the years, alhamdulillah, it was actually not that difficult, just because the school I went to was 99.999% Pakistani Bengali, basically. So culturally, you could still massively relate to people.
Did you ever feel like you didn't fit in, or?
I think even to this day, sometimes I feel like I don't fit in. But that's just, I suppose, I think most of us will probably feel like that at certain parts of our life, our interactions and things like that.
Yeah.
I would say at a deeper level, again, this is turning into a therapy session, but at a deeper level, I suppose, even within the community, there are certain things that are quite starkly different between somebody who's come over from Pakistan and settling here than somebody who's born here. And yeah, there was those sort of differences and things that you needed to kind of get used to, and that you needed to understand how people sort of were and weren't. So yeah, I mean, there was a lot of getting used to stuff like that. But I suppose, even now, sometimes I sit back and I look at it and go, yeah, I don't get cultural references, some of them, and that kind of thing that people here, that were born here, that kind of get. So, there are times where I sit back and go, that, I don't know what you're talking about.
At 16 then, you did your GCSEs.
Yeah.
Where did you think life was going to take you at that particular moment in time, or where did you want to go at that particular moment in time?
So at that moment in time, I was still very much medicine. By that point, very much was geared towards, I want to study medicine. I want to become a doctor. So I went to an inner city school, which eventually I think ended up as part of the whole Trojan horse stuff later on down the line. Much later, but so it just gives you an idea of the kind of school I went to. It wasn't the best academically. It was good, alhamdulillah. I did really well in my GCSEs relative to those people, but in the end, that partially held me back when it came to university applications later on down the line, even though I had really good GCSEs comparatively, but compared to those who went to the grammar schools and stuff, it didn't. So, yeah, I mean, at 16, I was still very much hell-bent on becoming a doctor.
When did you realise that that's not going to be the pathway that you're going to take?
It was actually during university. So what happened is I studied the subjects I needed to at A level. Alhamdulillah, got the grades, got straight A's, finished college really well, sixth form. Applied for for medicine at a few different universities. I actually got a place to study medicine at Liverpool University. I think I got a combination of lots of different factors, family stuff, all that sort of thing. I didn't go to Liverpool, and I probably got a bit back-headed thinking I'll get into another university closer.
Yeah.
So instead of deferring the place, I said to apply again, I had to reject it. Qadarullah.
Yeah.
I rejected it, applied again, and then never got another place. So I then ended up studying medical science at the University of Birmingham, which is a research degree, so it's not medicine. It's a 3-year course. I think by the time year 2 rolled around, I had a few broken promises in terms of if I did well, I could switch and so on. I did really well. I was on course to get a first in year 1. Didn't switch.
Yeah.
I then just tanked, basically. just not necessarily gave up, but I just went, right, can't be asked. I'm not doing a post-grad medicine course for 5 years on top of this 3 years. Life needs to move on. And by the time I finished university, I really wasn't very much asked with that degree. And at that point, I just thought, I'm going to do something else.
And where did that take you then?
Again, traditional route. I started looking at accountancy for some reason. I don't want to stereotype, but I looked at a few different things. Alhamdulillah, when I went to university, I had loads of options. Like, because of my grades, I was like, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging. I had admissions tutors phoning me, telling me to come onto the course. Like, my second and third choices, you used to get, I don't know what it is now, like you got 4 choices on UCAS for your main one, and you put 2 more down, and usually you'd put something else on. So like computer science, pharmacy. And I would get those places. Yeah. And they'd phone me up, say, we'll give you a bursary, we'll give you a scholarship. Like, I still remember to this day, I got the phone call from the dean at the University of Birmingham, well, the head of computer science, and he was like, we're going to give you a scholarship, we're going to do this, come and study this with us, we definitely want you on board. And I just went, nah, I still want to be a doctor. But when I finished university, it was like, okay, obviously those options are gone, unless you go back and you do another degree, and the finances of that just are not worth it. So I was like, I'll do some bookkeeping courses and accountancy courses. So I did the AAT, I did a couple of those levels. I started buying and selling cars. Again, don't want to sound stereotypical. It's kind of the industry you fall into, I suppose, by default. My mum's side is very much into the motor trade. So I was just helping my cousin out with his garage, running it for him, started getting my hands dirty. I'd done when I took my gap year, I'd done a motor mechanics course. So I was in my element. I like doing that sort of stuff. So yeah, I did all sorts of things as I thought. I mean, if you ask me what happened next, loads of things happened next.
What were your parents like at that particular moment in time when you've done a university degree, but you're not pursuing anything related to that university degree?
Again, very supportive, alhamdulillah. Yeah. My parents, if I reflect on it, even to this day, just to trust my judgment and have given me that sort of freedom, alhamdulillah. Yeah, I mean, they were always trying to push me to do the best I could do. When I went into cars, they supported me. They gave me whatever little bit of savings they had to say, go do your best with it. It didn't work out in the end. Eventually, while I was doing my courses and stuff, I had I ended up getting a full-time job in a call center, basically, and then got married. I had to bring my wife over. So those kind of things meant, like, I just went and just did whatever I needed to do to get to the next step.
Yeah.
And again, my parents were always supportive. I was always applying for jobs, graduate jobs, every single year. So I think, I worked in a call center. Alhamdulillah, I did well working my way up, and then, eventually ended up on HMRC's graduate scheme.
How old were you when you ended up on HMRC's graduate scheme?
I was 26, almost 27.
Almost 27.
Yeah.
How long were you married for at that particular moment in time?
I was 2.5 years.
Wow. And then how was the HMRC graduate program? What did you envisage that to be?
If I'm being honest with you, I don't know what I thought of it at the time. It was a graduate scheme, and it was a very good career. So I'd done my research. The accountancy side of things, while I was doing the qualifications leading up to that, I knew it was going to be a long, hard slog for somebody who didn't have the background, hadn't gone into it as a graduate and all of those things. So if I was to do that, it was going to be a very long slog. I remember going to job interviews for like in-house bookkeepers and stuff, and they'd look at me like, you're overqualified. What are you doing here? We can't employ you.
Yeah.
Like as my background and my CV, I wasn't qualified in the field, but they didn't want to employ me in accounts payable and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't get experience. So I think when I did the research, it was, kind of fast forwarding. I knew the opportunities it would open up, and it was sort of related to accountancy. Didn't really know what I was getting myself into. For me, it was just like, it's a career path. So I just went into it like that, and I went into it quite blind. I just started at HMRC. The scheme was actually really good. They were at the time very generous with your study leave, how many times you had to be in the office, how many days you can take off to study. The in-house training was actually really, really good.
How long were you at HMRC in terms of the graduate course? How long was
the
training?
graduate scheme at HMRC is actually quite long.
Yeah.
It was at the time. I think it's shorter now. So at the time, it was just under 4 years, which is quite a lengthy grad scheme. I didn't hang about much after I finished that, to be honest with you. So I joined HMRC 2013, September, and I left them in July 2018, I believe. So it was around about the 5-year mark ish. And I did the way the grad scheme works is the first 2.5, 3 years was loaded with training, and then it was more kind of casework and get up to it. I mean, when you land in HMRC at the time, they would always make you do casework. So you learn from day one. You learn the bread and butter day one. And then eventually, the learning gets less. You do more of the doing. You learn even more. And by the time I was qualified, finished, I was pretty much at a full caseload, doing lots of complex inquiries. I did that for another year or so. And then job offers came from the private side, and I just jumped ship.
Were you always planning to jump ship from HMRC and just using HMRC for your training, your experience, and then
Yeah.
going to private work?
You make me sound like a mercenary there. No, I would say not quite like as a set plan,
Yeah.
but whether it's in your rear view mirror or as far into the distance, it was always kind of there. I knew them. I knew when I applied for it. When I did my research or the little research I did, I knew that was a path.
Yeah.
But I don't think I started with that kind of aim of
Yeah.
following that exact path. I
Yeah.
think that came as things progressed. I think as I was still in HMRC, I was still like very much like, I want to do well here. It's a great place. The civil service is an amazing place to be. It's not the same. The hustle and the bustle is.
Yeah.
I know different departments and different locations are different, but it was actually very good in that sense. I had 2 of my 3 kids while I was in HMRC as a graduate trainee or somebody on learning, and it was all very good, alhamdulillah. So it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was like a plan, but it was in my foresight to say, okay, that could happen, that may happen. And then eventually I didn't see myself progressing within HMRC for a very long time. And the thing with me is I'd probably tick all the boxes for somebody who would have ADHD. I just don't have it.
Welcome to the club, brother. Yeah. Welcome to the club.
I don't want the. It might get controversial, but I don't want the label, and I don't.
Yeah. I'm the exact same.
Yeah,
I definitely got it, but I don't want the label.
When I see what I mean, and these things are a spectrum, right? So it's not actual.
Yeah.
If you tick the box and you're on a spectrum of things, so I'm very like, I need to do the next thing. I need to progress. I need to do that, and that's not what the civil service is. Mostly.
Why do you think the civil service is like that?
I mean, the messaging I got at the time was, at least in HMRC, was you got to do your time.
Yeah.
You've just finished your graduate scheme. Yeah, we think you're brilliant, but you got to do 2 years before we put you on that next thing to do to the next level. I'm like, why don't you put me on it now?
Yeah.
And in 2 years' time, I'll be ready to go to the next step.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I left HMRC. So, I left and I was recruited into Mazars at the time as a manager. And within less than a year, I was a senior manager, which would have been the same level as the next level up in HMRC.
Yeah.
To give you perspective, that would have taken me probably, without even exaggerating, 5 to 10 years to get to that level.
You think there's just like a lot of people that are just been at HMRC for so long that just don't want to move, and then them vacancies just don't come up?
It is that it's dead man's shoes, right? So you do get an element of that where people kind of, the next person up is not going to move for the next 20 years. Where'd you go? Yeah. Whereas in the private sector, if you're good enough and you're bringing the money in, they'll create you that role.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean if there's 10 of you doing that, if you're all doing well commercially, you've got a job, you've got a progress path. Relatively speaking, not all firms work like that. But generally speaking, if you can put money into the bottom line, you can create a path for yourself.
Don't you think that the route that you took, obviously being at HMRC for 4 or 5 years and then moving across, don't you think that's a very popular thing anyway? A lot of people do that.
It's become very popular now.
Okay.
When I did it in 2018, it was probably starting to become popular.
You're a trendsetter.
I'm not entirely sure. I look at it as my year group.
Yeah.
Was a bit of a trendsetter. There's a few people in the year before that had left, but there was an exodus of sorts. At least in the Midlands, which is where I was based, and I'm still based. I saw a lot of my colleagues who I trained with jump shift soon after. Around the time I was leaving, they were all having similar conversation. I didn't know it at the time, but it turned out to be the case. There's a good bunch of us that left around the same time. I ended up being the first one, but it wasn't like a domino effect. Everybody thought the same because they were all in the same boat. Like, where are we going to go from here?
What could HMRC have done different to be able to keep them people?
I think you have to remember, around that time, we were still very much in the middle of austerity. We still had the coalition governments in place. There was huge pay caps. Everyone, you got to that. And look, at the end of the day, one of my bosses has always said to me, or ex-bosses used to say to me was, you work to have a life outside of work. You don't let work become your life. So what do we work for? To provide for our families, to have a life, to enjoy ourselves, and so on. So if you're working, even if you're stuck at the same level, if you're still getting paid well and you continue to, increase with inflation at least, right, where you're getting a 0 point something pay rise every year, and that's all you're going to get for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
What can you do? And it's not necessarily HMRC. That's government policy.
Yeah.
Department can't really do much. I mean, senior leaders that were in my office, at least, they tried. They were like, okay, what if we give you a sideways roles to give you that opportunity to progress quicker and this, and I had those conversations and they made those offers. But by that time, my heart was set. There's no going back.
How did you find the difference between working in the private sector compared to the public sector?
Quite stark. It's quite different. It's a bit of a culture shock. I kind of knew that. I think with having tried my hand at business, having worked in different places, I wasn't a fresh grad into the job. That's it. And I think it's benefited me in my career, alhamdulillah, is the commercial awareness and the experience from outside of that prior to it. So I think I was sort of prepared because I knew what I was going to get myself into. But still, it's quite your timesheets, your billing, chargeability, utilization, all of these things kind of hit you in the face. All you did in HMRC was start time, end time, and that was it.
Yeah.
Just about.
No wonder no one ever answers the phone at HMRC, man. Sounds like a chilled workplace.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the kind of places you would be experiencing phoning into, they're not the same places that I worked in, and I think though they generally, from what I understand, understaffed, undervalued, and from what we see these days, HMRC is hell-bent on moving away from providing phone services. I mean, they've even tried to close them a few times, right? On busy periods.
In busy periods, that's the worst thing about it, is busy periods.
It's busy, we're going to deal with it by closing the phone line.
I remember, like, when I first joined practice 10, 12 years ago, calling the agent helpline, you get in instantly, and now you got to wait 20, 25 minutes just for the agent helpline.
Yeah, true. I mean, I don't get to make those phone calls too often because my practice isn't based around that.
Yeah.
I do have my direct lines to the inspectors dealing with cases and whatnot. But the times where I've had to do that, I can see how frustrating that is and so inefficient. But look, dealing with those things within HMRC, it's not just for HMRC. That's a government level policy decision, investment that's required. HMRC has lost, it's downsized purely through the austerity phase, and even before that with the mergers between Inland Revenue and Customs, and from that point it's more than halved in workforce overall. That's got to have an impact on your organisation.
100%.
And then on top of that, you've had subsequent to that the whole regional office shifts, like going from 150 something offices locally to 13 regional offices. Yes, they're massive and they're huge and they can house a lot of people, but that's going to have an impact.
When did you start your own practice?
So I started in April 2024.
April 2024?
Yeah.
And was that directly after you finished at Mazars, or did you have something in between?
So I left Mazars at the end of 2021. I joined BDO.
Yeah.
So I think by certain measures, the fifth biggest firm in the country and possibly the world. I joined them in, very start of 2022, January 2022. I worked there until March 2024, so 2 and a bit years. And then I started my...
How was the experience at BDO?
Oh, again, you asked me the question, how was it different from HMRC to Mazars?
Yeah.
Mazars to BDO was probably a bigger shift.
Was it?
Yeah, to an extent. Like, people don't realise, when you're going up the top 10, how much of a size difference there is between certain firms. I mean, Mazars is an amazing firm, but they're like top 7, top 8 by audit fee income. BDO is 5. So you're looking 3 places, but the size difference is like huge. Like, you're doubling or more than, almost tripling or more in size between those 2 firms.
Yeah.
And then you imagine the difference between that and the big 4. And again, it's a huge jump. So when you look at that, it's a big corporate behemoth you're going to work for. But you get the best of both worlds. I feel like I got the best of both worlds at BDO. I got the friendliness, the localness of the Mazars and that kind of thing, as well as then the experts and working with the very best in your field. So alhamdulillah, I feel like I got the best of both in that sense, and it was it was a shift.
How was your day-to-day different between Mazars and BDO?
So see, being a specialist, you get to kind of do your own thing most of the time.
Yeah.
So that's the benefit. So people listening might be thinking, that's not my experience, or that's not what people have told me. But when you are a specialist, and such high specialist as I am, then you're left to your own devices to an extent, because the teams are smaller. You're sitting a certain service line. you're effectively, your job is to go out there, win the work, do the work, deliver the work, get paid for it, like do everything in between, even as an associate director, which I was. So, yeah, I mean, the day-to-day wouldn't have been that much difference. The key differences were the type of clients I was working with, the breadth of who I was being introduced to by my colleagues, the increase in profile outside of the firm. Like going and working for BDO as an associate director just opened doors for me personally. Like the kind of people I was speaking to, people knew. So I'd seen that on LinkedIn and whatnot. They knew me before I'd even spoken to them. So that kind of thing, it made a difference.
How did you mentioned obviously you had to go out there and win the work. So how did you win that work, or how did you get the leads, or how was it?
Getting therapy sessions.
Being in PTSD.
Oh, well, you're taking me back to my first networking event. I think.
You know what? I'll be honest with you. I hate networking events. I hate majority of them.
Yeah, so I recently put out a post on, networking is a waste of time. But that was a bit of a clickbait. So look, networking is different people. So I started with, your traditional, let's go out there, attend the events. I think the very first one I went to was like it was the Asian Business Chamber of Commerce in Birmingham. And I went with a good friend of mine, Rizwan, and I just remember standing there with my little soft drink in hand on one corner. And so after talking to two people that he'd introduced me to, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like, I just stood in one corner, really awkward, which might come as a bit of a surprise to people now when I am a bit more. I mean, it's really odd. Like for me, networking's gone really really awkward to quite comfortable, to back down to awkward now because I don't do as much of it. So if I do turn up in a room now, I'm like, what do I do? Like, I have to think back. But to win work, it was the simplest way of describing it is just hard yards. So you go out and you talk to people. And for me, it was networking events, attending seminars, attending your local branch meetings for the various different accountancy bodies. So your AAT, IFA, all of these guys, like approaching them systematically, offering to speak on my specialism, educating. From there, the contact base started to grow. And part of that was me waffling on LinkedIn. And like between those things, I started to grow a bit of a network. Now, the thing is, that's a bit of an exaggeration in terms of winning the work, because when you're working at those firms, you're quite expensive. Yeah. And it's very difficult to win work from outside of that firm. Yeah. For my type of specialist. My type of specialist is probably easier than some other ones, but it's still difficult. Like when you're charging that much and somebody can go to the accountant or whoever who can do it for way less than that, you're competing in a different market. And it's difficult to communicate that value to them, especially at that part of it. I'm probably different now. If I was still working there, I'd communicate it in a different way and it would be more about me personally. In that stage of my career, the people probably thinking it's all for the firm and, it's overpriced, whatever. I don't charge too different from what I would have charged at Mazars now. But I can still get paid well for it. Yeah. But, I mean, winning the work was largely using the external market to access my internal market. And it was something I was taught quite early on by the partner who recruited me into Mazars. And John said to me, you've got your external market, go out there, do the hard yards. You got your internal market, which is talk to your colleagues, talk to the partners, go do that, right? And then you got your external to internal. So when you go out and do stuff outside, talk about it so that your colleagues know about it. And that helps you then keeps you front and center for your colleagues as well. So it then opens up that internal market more. And yes, I won work outside of the firms, but I would probably win the vast majority of it within the firm when people were introducing, or they would get leads, or optimizing the work into my practice from colleagues. So, which is, when you then think about it, probably preempting your question, but when you think about it, that to then setting up your own firm, you don't have an internal market, full stop. What do you do then?
So what gave you that push? So you did your experience at HMRC, you did your experience at Mazars, and you did your experience at BDO. What was that particular moment where you said, okay, no, I'm going to go on my own now?
I think leaving, you asked me that question earlier, was it always in your front of your mind or somewhere in the distant where you were going to leave HMRC? I think more than that, what was always in my mind was to do something for myself. Even when I wanted to do medicine, my end goal wasn't to be a GP and sit in a practice. It was bigger than that.
Yeah.
Or at least that was the ambition, not necessarily a goal. So when I was going through this journey, there was always something in my mind like, could I do this on my own? Could I go back and actually make a success of a business? I failed in one. It was a completely different ball game, but I failed in one. Overall, could I do it? And that was always there. And then the way, like, my specialist practice is, you're practically running your own business within the firm anyway. So it's just a case of, can you take it out of that and do it outside? And then in 2022, my mum had the deterioration of health, basically. She went from working full-time, being a carer, driving around, set of mini strokes, couldn't drive, got diagnosed as a very rare condition, and it just put life into perspective for me. And I looked at that and I thought, yeah, I don't want to be in the rat race for the rest of my life. And that crystallized pretty much what then happened afterwards. So that was within 6 months of joining BDO, right? A bit more than that. And even around that time, so that was September 22. And by October 22, I was saying to BDO, can I, and, you know, fair play to them. I already said to them, I don't want to do 5 days a week. Can I compress my hours, reduce some of my hours, and find a way I can only work 4 days? They agreed to that. You know, 8 months in, they agreed to something that big. They did that, and that then gave me kind of the time to start thinking. Obviously, you know, helping mum with whatever I needed to. You know, those years were quite challenging, quite at times full on. Appointments in London, here, there, and everywhere. And BDO were very supportive throughout all of that whenever I needed to take time. But when I looked at that, I just went, Mum's worked so hard since she came into this country, and now all of a sudden, Allah's switched this switch and she can't. So how long do any of us have? And that just put things into perspective, and it just crystallized that thought of, I really want to do something on my own. And then over 2023, I think by the time I got 6 months into that, I'd already pretty much made my mind up. And it was just a case of get to the end of 2023, see how the calendar year ends, and then crystallize that decision. Because I'd made the decision, I think, but I crystallized it over that Christmas break. 2024, first meeting with my partner, I handed in my resignation.
How did you take that resignation?
She was fine with it. She kind of, I think she could see it coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, she could see it coming because I'd pushed for promotion. Like, I went in as an AD. I was like, I want to get to director. And then partner, again, I can't sit still. I was like, the next thing, I want to get to the top. At that time, the top for me was partnership. And I was on that track, but it was again the thing of, you've just joined the firm, let's do this. Rightly so, possibly. I had a lot of support from my own service line, but obviously the firm is the firm. And I think by the time that I gave that almost as I don't want to have any regrets. When I pushed for that and I didn't get that step, or I got told next year, I went, that's it.
Definitely.
And then when I had the conversation, I could see the realization dawning on her face as I was telling her. She knew exactly what was coming. And it took it really well. And I've had a lot of support. I mean, I've left the firm and everything, but I have good relationships with all of my ex-colleagues, partners, people I worked with, and they still support me to this day. So if there's stuff, you know, for example, that doesn't fit in their remit, they're more than happy to pick up the phone and say, Salman, do you want to deal with it?
Yeah. So then you started your own practice.
Yeah.
How difficult is it starting your own practice?
I'm going to make it sound really easy, to be honest with you, because for me, my journey, and I know it's not the case for 99% of the people, for me, alhamdulillah, it's been a blessed journey from the beginning. That sort of network I built up beforehand, the LinkedIn wafflings and all of that, and you know, the shaking hands and, you know, going and meeting accountants, while it wasn't fruitful was at the firms, it was extremely fruitful when I set up. Everybody I knew was very supportive. It was almost like they were falling over themselves to refer work to me, to give me stuff. So when I started, I actually hit the ground running from day one, and I've barely needed to do any other marketing other than LinkedIn and a few of these podcasts.
Yeah.
And just knowing the people I know, and alhamdulillah, that's meant I've done more than I ever thought I could do in the last 16 months.
In terms of obviously growing,
Yeah.
you've grown very significantly quite quickly.
Yeah.
What challenges have you faced in terms of that? Do you think there's any challenges, or do you think you just taken it in your stride?
I think if you want to be successful, you sort of have to take it in your stride. A challenge is just a way to grow. It's a way to do something different. It's a way to do something more. It's a way to iterate, whatever, all of those things and some more. So I think, personally speaking, I think I've taken most of it in my stride. Where I've kind of faced the biggest challenges is fulfilling the work, like, because so much would come in. You're like, okay, I got to deliver it, and having the right structures in place. So in order to do that, I've utilized external consultants. I've utilized bookkeepers, accountants to do the sort of the more nitty-gritty level of work. That's not the tax disputes type of stuff. So, you in any given case, you might have some financial analysis, bank analysis, stuff like that. So, and then eventually that's led to me taking on like an outsourced resource to help me with that on a bookkeeping, accounting side of things, which then alhamdulillah has freed me up. But again, when you hit a dead end, you got to find a way around it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to fail.
Obviously, I'm quite. I know about your industry,
Yeah.
but a lot of viewers probably won't know about your industry and how different you are from an accountant and what you do. So explain to us, what do you actually do?
So I solve HMRC-sized problems.
Okay.
Is the way I can put it. It's
Yeah.
the simplest way. We call ourselves tax investigations experts, tax dispute experts, tax controversy, this, that, and the other. Being ex-HMRC goes a long way in this line of work. Rightly or wrongly, I won't know, because if you ask me, like, being ex-HMRC, how does it help me? Well, it helped me when I first left. The USP helps, but actually most of what I deal with now, I've had to look up and deal with in the time I've left. It's not the same as what it was then. So, but what in a nutshell I do day to day is help people fix historical problems. So if you've got a disclosure to make, it's not paid the right taxes, if there's any type of risks in that, I help them fix that through voluntary disclosures, through investigation routes or whatever. I help individuals and businesses if they get investigated. So managing that process, trying to come up with a way of making it as cost effective to get out of it as possible, and anything in between that it might relate to. So if there's an issue with HMRC and it's historical, then I get involved in that.
How often do HMRC actually make mistakes when it comes to all of this?
Don't get me cancelled. Be careful what I say. To be honest with you, I'm quite blunt with this, and normally, so it doesn't matter. A lot. Look, there's bits of HMRC is a huge department. Even now, it's a huge 50,000-60,000 people or something like that work in HMRC. I don't know the latest head count, but huge department. So you're gonna get that spectrum of abilities and capabilities, and all of that stuff. So there's bits of HMRC that I know when I deal with them, I'll get somebody good, competent most of the time. Not 100% guarantee, but most of the time. Then there's bits of HMRC, it's the exact opposite. I know I'm going to get somebody who's not been trained well, not their fault, not been trained well. The approach that part of HMRC takes is a very much on this side, you'd probably call it stack it high, sell it cheap kind of thing, right? Lots of automated processes or whatever. And then, so yeah, in short, lots of issues, lots of mistakes, trying to explain to clients why that's happening, why are they being put to the sword because of someone else not understanding something, and so on. But yeah, we do a lot of fixing those kind of things.
See, I think over the course of the probably last 5-6 years, what I've noticed with HMRC, and like you said, it's probably not their fault because they're understaffed and people are going on their graduate programs and leaving immediately. But but they got a lot of very new people in terms of that are not trained yet, and because they don't have the staff, they have to kind of put them on VAT inspections or things like that. And then sometimes when you're talking to them, you're like, you don't actually have a clue, and it's not your fault. You're an apprentice that have just like been thrown into the deep end.
Yeah.
And I feel that a lot with HMRC, and there's just it gets very frustrating, I think, because clients always think that HMRC are they can't lie, and then you're an accountant there and you're like, but no, they're incompetent. I'm telling you the truth. It's difficult, isn't it?
It is very difficult. I mean, it's turning into a reverse therapy session. You can vent now. Or honestly speaking, the amount of times, I mean, I'm in a different place. So because of people see me as that specialist, because I sell myself as that, I don't get that much of a pushback, but I still get an element of that.
Yeah.
How can HMRC be so wrong?
Yeah.
Trust me, they are wrong. I'm telling you they're wrong. I'll prove to you they're wrong, and you'll thank me for it later. I mean, I'll give you one example. I had a client, right? We put his disclosure in. Let property campaign, regular stuff. Accountants can do it. I can do it. I do it. You do it. Whoever it comes to basically does it. I'll probably get paid better for it. Anyway. And we did the disclosure. And we sort of argued reasonable excuse. We said restricted to 4 years. HMRC went, nah. Like kind of expected. Okay. Few back and forth. They raised an assessment. Didn't mention appeal rights. So they lost out on everything. Because technically that was an invalid assessment and they can't have a second bite of the cherry.
Yeah.
So, like, while we were offering them, I think it was like 6,000-7,000 in tax, and they wanted 10, they were 0.
Yeah.
Because they were just incompetent in when they went to raise an assessment, and their own review officer threw it out and said, "Well, sorry, we made a mistake. We're going to wipe out the assessments."
So it was worthwhile for your client then, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we did the whole disclosure process. You didn't have to pay a penny to them.
Yeah.
So, and his issues are now sorted. The cluster's sorted. So he's made the disclosure. They've missed out on it. He's up to scratch. That's fine.
How often do you see things like this though, where the process isn't followed correctly by HMRC? And don't get me wrong, look, we get clients sometimes that get penalties or whatever, and as soon as they get a brown envelope, they're paying it. They're paying whatever. Be like, no, actually, wait.
Yeah.
Give it to us first. Yeah. Let's see if it's actually accurate, and then we can appeal it or whatever, and we'll tell you. But how often is it that HMRC don't follow their process?
So in investigations, again, depending on the type of the part of department you're dealing with, can be quite significant, quite a lot. Yeah. I mean, right now, last week and a half, I've had 3 responses on disclosures, and 2 of them are error strong. Like there's errors in them. Like what calculations they've done, they're not right. Yeah. The stuff that they're arguing is not right. I mean, I'm not even talking technical. I'm talking taking our computations and sticking it into their calculators, and it's wrong.
It's wrong, yeah.
They've missed out some of the stuff we put in. Like in our client's favor, but it's wrong. Yeah. Some of it is not in our client's favor, but it's wrong. Yeah. And you have to look at that, and obviously we have things like the PCRT and all of that sort of stuff, so we have to approach it with care. Like if we know there's a mistake in our favour or otherwise, we have to still deal with it. So it is frustrating because it adds cost. I mean, it adds cost to you as a business, right? Because you're dealing with it. Your client's not going to want to pay for that. Yeah. A lot of times, unless it's the actual underlying mistake that you're fixing with them. Like right now, one of those cases, the client's like, okay, can you just show us the difference between those 2 things then? So I'm like, okay, now I have to do 10, 15 years worth of tax computations again just to show them the difference between HMRC and me. It's just frustrating.
How often do you have HMRC that are very, it's my way or the highway?
I see it.
Yeah.
But again, don't want to sound too arrogant, but I think I'm pretty okay at managing them to bring them away from that cliff edge most of the time. Generally speaking, when I tend to get involved, it gives the caseworker a clean break with whoever came before. And generally, it's not another specialist. Generally speaking, it's the accountant or another advisor. Yeah. But because it gives them that clean break, they see who I am. They see my background. They see my past. They see my my qualification, my experience, and they're a bit more trusting. So I'm usually able to kind of bring them back to say, let's just deal with it in a sensible way. I see what's gone on before. I can't account for that. Yeah. Let's have a clean break and let's start again. And generally speaking, I'll get them on site. So I don't see as much of a get lost bit. Yeah. Even if that's what they've done with the accountant, I'll usually get a better outcome from that.
What's the biggest case that you've worked on so far?
Throughout my career?
Yeah, throughout your career.
Okay, they probably don't count. Like when I was a trainee, I don't count. They were like, because I started in the large business service, so you can imagine zeros for the page end. So huge businesses, the household names. Outside of that, it was probably in one of my previous firms, I dealt with a case which basically involved a withholding tax issue on payments to an EU jurisdiction, and it was whether that company should have operated it. And the tax at stake in one of those companies was about £50 million, and across the board it was close to a couple of £100 million. And we were basically trying to agree with HMRC that, look, you can have the tax, but then we'll claim it back, and then you have to pay, and it'll just be the interest. And in the first instance, there isn't an obligation, and so on and so forth. So, off the top of my head, that's probably the biggest like tax at stake case I've worked on. But I've worked on, because I've generally done 2 roles at those firms. I don't do the second now, because I'm a small independent one-man band basically.
Yeah.
But I've done governance work as well, so tax governance. I don't want to bore people with that, but with that you're dealing with 200 million plus turnover businesses. So again, you're talking a huge amount at stake potentially if the governance isn't right. But yeah, dealt with a lot of big cases.
Do you think it's fair to say that HMRC, predominantly in terms of businesses, and let's not talk about individuals in terms of international disclosures or property let campaigns, etc. But do you think from a business perspective, HMRC spends most of its resources on going after the bigger businesses?
No.
I
think so.
See, I think
balance.
I've been fortunate. I think I've been in practice 12 years and I've probably come across a limited company investigation probably once.
Yeah. I think, so the way HMRC deals with different sizes of business is different.
Yeah.
So the large business directorate is just called large business, but the large business directorate within HMRC that looks after, I think it's the 1,000 of the biggest businesses in the land. So these are businesses that have a 200 plus million turnover and assets of 2 billion or more, one or the other. That's what a large business is. They have a customer compliance manager-led model. So you'll have a CCM who looks after the business. They do business risk reviews. It's an ongoing kind of relationship where they identify risks, deal with them on a yearly basis. So it's very hands-on. And then you have mid-sized businesses below that, which is dealt with slightly differently. The investigations you get into them are quite intrusive because a lot of those businesses would be owner-managed businesses that have grown exponentially and so on. So you'd get very intense investigations.
What kind of turnover are we talking for a mid-sized business?
So you're talking below 200 million turnover, and I think it's the threshold's only about 10 or 15 million turnover before you end up in that. But not necessarily you'll get managed by the mid-sized, the wealthy and mid-sized compliance directorate. But if you do end up in that population, chances are eventually they'll start looking at you. Again, they don't do the CCM model, they do the more investigation model. But the investigations are like what you would have probably got in the 90s or the 80s before our time, right?
Yeah.
Like from what I've heard, they're very intense. When you get like a cross-tax inquiry, they really look at you with a suspicious eye and they think because you're owner managed, whatever. And below that, you got like individuals and small business compliance, and that varies greatly. Like I'm not surprised you've never seen too many, because the way HMRC investigates in that field or in that population is risk-based or random. I don't know how many random inquiries they do these days. A lot of it seems to be risk-based. But then my data is skewed because people come to me when there are bigger issues. So I don't see the random stuff. You might see that.
Yeah.
Then how many of your clients are likely to get picked up? I mean, we're a very... it's recently started to hit me. Like, when you drive around just Birmingham and you see these industrial estates after industrial estates and business parks, just slow down and look at different names of businesses. How enterprising of a nation we live in is mind-boggling to me when I've started to notice it, which is why we have so many accountants who have so many clients, because there's so many businesses. So if you take that population, which is massive, and you have a relatively small proportion of that as your client base, you're not going to see that many.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the approach varies.
So you said random and risk. What do they look for in terms of when it comes to risk?
So risk-based would be things like if they've seen certain numbers go up and down, dividends declared, expenditure, capex, whatever, right? Anything, any metric you as an accountant might look at, they might risk-base that. The other things would be people phoning in and saying, by the way, do you know this business is started to do really well? They're declaring everything to you. So they might look at that and then start identifying. This day and age, majority of, well, maybe I'm over-egging it, but at least in my view and what I see, I believe majority of HMRC's investigative sort of outlook is campaigns-based and data-based. So things like if as directors, the company's declared a dividend, but it's not in your personal tax return. That's a very simple example, right? But there's all of these campaigns that are always going on, and that's what they're looking at now. I think when they're doing that particular population, go after it in a certain way, and so on and so forth.
Got a business idea for you. We can do business.
Yeah.
They've got this whistleblower campaign now, haven't they? So I'll go snitch on the businesses. Yeah, they'll get investigated. They'll come to you. Good business that.
You get paid by them. I get paid by the client. Yeah. So they're changing the whistleblower model. So they're proposing to basically pay people who snitch or who report. Let's just be politically correct. Who report people who've evaded their okay. Yeah, I mean, basically. So they've always had this. They've always had a tax evasion helpline or hotline, phone in. But they're very careful with how they'll handle that data. Just because you phone in doesn't mean they're going to do anything about it. But they are very much risk-based now.
What's the difference for our viewers between tax evasion and tax avoidance?
No easy questions today. So tax evasion is effectively something that's completely illegal. So, for example, classic example, the till stuff goes into the accounts, the cash doesn't go into the account. You know what you're doing, you don't want to declare it, that's tax evasion. So basically setting out not to pay your tax knowingly. Basic tax fraud, tax evasion, same thing, pretty much borderline criminal. Tax avoidance is, so people used to explain this, even when I started in HMRC. HMRC's own definition at the time, at least the colleagues I worked with, was it's not in the spirit of the law, it's in the letter of the law. I think that's long gone. Avoidance this day and age is literally people taking the mick.
Yeah.
Right? Pushing the boundary so far that it's borderline illegal, but it's wrapped up in such a way it just looks like planning gone wrong.
Yeah.
Right? So avoidance, it's something that's not necessarily illegal, but it's not in line with the spirit of the law, the intention of Parliament, and maybe even the letter of the law. So artificially trying to do something is generally being defined as avoidance. But I think this day and age, that line between avoidance and evasion is very severely blurred. Because HMRC took a sledgehammer to that industry. They absolutely tried to wipe it out with the loan charge legislation, Part 7A, all sorts of anti-avoidance provisions. I mean, you've had the general anti-abuse, the GAR, and every year you get something new. So they've just taken a sledgehammer and a bulldozer to that industry and tried to wipe it out. So what you get now is very egregious. So when people are marketing stuff, it's quite seriously bad.
Yeah. In terms of obviously taxes in the UK, what's your opinion on them at this moment in time? You mentioned that you were driving past an industry is a very enterprising country, but over the course of the last year
everything's
everything's kind of going to pot in a way. You've got the national insurance, obviously, which is affecting smaller businesses. You've got corporation tax rates, which I can envisage that in the autumn budget probably they may get rid of 19% and go straight to 25%. What do you think of all of that at this moment in time?
So look, when I deal with it, I mean, obviously I don't do the day-to-day like you do. I do get an element of that, and I do talk to a lot of business owners, usually ones who are in trouble, or people just even then generally do reach out to me. The impression I get is the tax burden is a bit too high.
Yeah.
However, I think I would qualify that with the following, that I think if people could see where that money was going, they could stomach it.
Yeah.
I think the problem at the moment is, and if I'm speaking personally, you don't see that. You don't see what you're paying and what you're getting in return as that equilibrium that you probably had in the past.
Yeah, so that return of investment, and basically.
Like, investing in the nation,
where
is the nation going?
You got councils that are bankrupt, you got NHS, which is kind of on his knees. Policing isn't the same as it used to be.
Can't get a doctor's appointment.
Can't get a and all these things, like the services that you're potentially paying for, you don't get.
Yeah. So I think the general feeling is that we're paying way too much and it's too high and so on. And I think that's the impression I get. That's the impression I get from my clients, and they just feel like, what's in it for us? Like, I deal with a lot of property people, and they just that. I mean, again, that's a witch hunt in a way, right? So like, it's not profitable. Like, it's not even worth being a landlord anymore if you've got a couple of properties just on a normal rent to rent.
Yeah.
And then we wonder why our rent's going up so much, because people can't pay their taxes.
It's insane because, like, I think that's another thing that will probably get crucified a bit more in the autumn budget. This whole property thing, and I think people, they just don't want us to own property anymore.
It's the boogeyman, isn't it? I mean, it's like, go after the landlords because. And look, I deal with a lot of people, accidental landlords or whoever that, you know, got 1, 2, 3 properties and didn't like fell foul of paying their taxes. You get them on board, you get it fixed, you pay the taxes and you move on. But then when you do it and they look at it and go, what's the point? I'm paying out of my own pocket. I'm going to sell up.
I always say the property is not as good investment as people make it out to be. It's not. I think it was a very safe investment, especially like, you know, people that left their countries and came here, like your parents and things like that. But I don't think it's that investment that it was once upon a time.
I think before you had the thing of, okay, you might not make too much from the rental, but you'd have capital appreciation.
Yeah.
Problem now you've got is, capital appreciation is probably still there, but you're paying out your own pocket every single year just to meet your tax obligations.
Yeah.
But then that makes it like, okay, but over the years, am I actually making anything, even the property part? Because I've paid so much on the rental side. And it makes it difficult.
Do you think that the country penalises the working class or the people that are trying to, you know, do business, that are working stroke middle class, and they get penalised more than the people at the top that always get away with everything when it comes to taxes?
Before I answer that, actually, you know, you asked me about the cultural changes way at the start.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest cultural changes, was the definition of working class and middle class between Pakistan and here.
Yeah.
Anyway, it took me back a bit, because over there, everyone wants to be middle class.
Yeah.
Here, people are proudly working class. And you've even classified small businesses and such as working class. So that was quite a big difference. Anyway, I think everyone's getting penalised one way or the other. I think people with more wealth, more resources are able to do something about it. Or at least they can maybe absorb the impact, whereas the little guy is struggling. They don't have the same access, and not everybody's on an equal playing field in terms of the services they're getting from their accountants or professionals have access to that sort of stuff, can't afford it. All of those things, I think, make a difference. So I think when you look at it, we have a sort of progressive rate taxation system, so you kind of pay more supposedly but you're paying a lot more when you're moving up, and it hits you. So I see a lot of the people are starting going, why would I earn more? I'm just going to pay all in taxes. They're not.
Yeah.
When you as a professional look at it, you'll know you're not. You're still net better off. But how do you explain that to people?
Yeah, it's very difficult, isn't it, to explain to people, I think. And I think it's that everything, like I've come back here now last week on Sunday, and I think about it, and I think everything's just gone so expensive. And salaries aren't matching that.
No.
Salaries are not matching that. You've got everything that's gone expensive. Your quality of life has probably gone down as well in terms of what it used to be. I'd say about 4 or 5 years ago, not even that long ago. And everything's just gone so expensive. And I look at it and I think, how can people actually afford it now?
Absolutely. Just simplest example. Kids are on holiday right now, and the ice cream van comes back. Like, I've got 3 kids. By the time they're done with the ice cream, it's like, what?
£10 at least.
Plus?
Yeah.
I'm like...
Used to be flake 99.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we were growing up. But even like pre-COVID, it was spend a fiver. £6. You know, everyone's got a decent... Now it's like £10. And if they go for the fancy one, it's like 15 plus. I'm like... What happened? Like, this is ice cream out of a van. This is supposed to be like the cheap option.
Yeah.
Like, I could go to the supermarket and get a lot more than this, man. Obviously, the kids want it. They want it. And alhamdulillah, we can.
Now, you know what it is? I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to vouch for your kids now, and I'm going to stand up for them. You can't compare the supermarket ice creams with Mr. Whippy, man. That's just two different things.
We need a whole episode on that, okay, separately, just as a debate. But no, I think I think I'd agree with you on that. But yeah, it's just crazy. Honestly speaking, it is. You see it. You go out to do your shop. Like, you could go to the discounter supermarkets, and you're still paying like a ridiculous amount for your house shopping. Like, I've never been in the shop like 2 years ago spending more than 20, 30 quid when I bought my fruit and veg or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Especially with the whole boycott scene, you're just
Yeah.
trying to, you're trying to go to, but now I'm coming out of there going, I spent 60 quid. It's like, what have I
Yeah.
bought?
What have you bought? Yeah, yeah. You look at your trolley and there's hardly anything
No,
in there.
I'm going for like fruit and like just some fruit for my kids
Yeah.
for the weekend or whatever. Coming out with a few extra things and like 40 quid.
Yeah.
Wow, what's going on here? But yeah, you feel it. You see
Yeah.
it now.
Do you think the middle class don't have access to the right investment advice and the right tax planning advice?
I mean, it depends on which, I think parts of the country,
Yeah.
communities, your background. Obviously, people like us whose families have moved into this country that 1, 2, 3, 4 generations back, or like my case, I'm literally first generation in a way. Like, it's different, but I think overall I would agree with that statement that people don't have that right level of access to the professionals. I think it's changing.
Yeah.
I think if we talk about the Muslim community, I think that's changing a lot. I think I talk about other sort of minority communities, I think it's changing.
Yeah.
I think as the next generation is progressing, you're getting that compounding effect, and because they've now grown up and educated second, third generation, they are aware of, like, actually, if I've got a little bit of money, I should have some investment advice on it. I should get some tax advice if I'm buying X, Y, and Z. If I'm running a business that's turning over not 6 figures, maybe 7 figures or more, then I definitely should be looking at advice and structuring it early on. And I think that education piece is happening. Still a bit slow in my opinion.
Do you think people value it though?
Not always.
Not always, isn't it? I think that's the problem we have in terms of...
It's a difficult sell.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's a difficult sell.
What's your why in business? Why are you self-employed? Why are you doing a business? Because I'll be honest with you, I've had multiple businesses, I've worked and everything, and having a business, your brain never turns off. Mm-hmm. You can't switch off. There's always something. Mm-hmm. So everyone goes into business to make money effectively, but it's about the goal, what you do with that money. So what's your why? What is it for?
Do we have another hour or so? I think one thing I'll say before I answer that is your why is never static. I'm sure you're the same. Your why does evolve. It changes. It improves with time. You get wiser and you look at different things.
It definitely changes with circumstance. Like for me, my whole mindset in terms of life was different before I got married to after I got married to after having a child. Yeah. And like you were saying about mindset before, it's like you were talking about your mum. I've seen a similar thing with my mum, and my whole mindset and everything has just drastically changed.
Yeah, I think for me the why when I first started thinking about leaving was flexibility, freedom, financial freedom, spending time with the kids, the wife even. Definitely with her, and kind of being able to give more to them, being present, all of that, which a lot of people might listen to this and laugh at how you went into self-employment because of those reasons. It's going to be the exact opposite. But I personally feel like, look, if you go for traditional stuff and you look at it in a traditional manner and you run your business in a traditional manner, it's going to hit you in the face and you're going to have the opposite. But if you're clever enough about it, you're thoughtful enough about it, you're intentional about it, and you go in and you set yourself up to do things better, differently, then yes, you can create those things. I think that's what I went into it for. Now, it's all of those things, and it's plus creating something that leaves a financial and lasting legacy. So when I set it up, the first thing I did was actually started to get more involved with a bunch of my friends who were running a charity.
Yeah.
And it gave me that freedom. And alhamdulillah, the barakah from that was immense. So the way I see it is, if I can do more with my business, it allows me to do even more of those things. And then I can do more for my family. So I think it's evolved into, in addition to those things, greater and bigger goals. Like, alhamdulillah, I was able to go on Hajj after being in self-employment for less than a year. I couldn't have done that in employment, I don't think.
Yeah.
Allah knows best, but He'd written it for me now after I'd done this, and He put the barakah in my business for me to be able to do that. Now, when I look at that, I was like, what else can I now do? I can do my little thing and I can keep doing it and I can go on Hajj again, or I can take someone else or whatever, right? Or I can actually create something even bigger that might help people, in in a deeper sense. So inshallah, that's the goal. So
Inshallah.
I'm sure it'll change in 2 weeks' time. It'll be something different. But currently, that's kind of like the broad kind of I want to impact more people. I want the business to be bigger, the practice to be bigger, to be able to do more with it. Not just so I can get more in my pocket. Obviously, that's a consequence of that. There's no, and we shouldn't be shy about money. I think difficulty, the two Muslims sitting here, I'm sure you grapple with the same things. Money can feel like a dirty thing at times, right?
Yeah,
that's a misunderstanding.
It is, it's what you do with
From
your
a
money.
faith perspective.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is obviously Shaitan's biggest weapon is like to scare your poverty and a fear of poverty in you, and that's one of his biggest weapons. But going back to what you were saying about your why kind of aligns a lot with my why. Like with my why now is I don't miss anything with my daughter. Alhamdulillah, like my daughter's 20 months old now. Alhamdulillah, I've not missed a single thing, and that's for me. I feel the richest man in the world because I'm always there for her wherever. Like I haven't missed a milestone. If she brings her shoes at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, all right, let's go to the park. It's and that's what he gives you.
But as someone who's on a bit further along that journey, in 3 kids and eldest being 11 now, youngest being 5, that does become difficult.
Yeah.
Or it becomes more challenging. In the earlier days, I mean, mashallah, you've got like your business journeys progressing while that happened. For me, my business journey came way down the line.
Yeah.
Like all 3 of my kids were born when I was in employment. So it was different. But I still had some of that. I've had more of that since.
Yeah.
But then as your business grows, if you don't stay on top of it, you can start to blur the lines.
Yeah.
So my advice to anyone listening is that's brilliant, but stay on top of it.
Yeah.
Don't let it slip, because it's very easy for that to slip. Because I've been there, especially in the last 16 months or so, where I've kind of had to check myself and go, is this what you set your business up for? No.
Yeah, it's true.
Pull back. Like for me, one of my things is like, I wasn't working Fridays when I left employment, and when I started, I was like, I don't want to work Fridays. Inshallah. And for most part, I've kept it, but I'm flexible enough to do certain things. So, your why has to evolve and your how has to evolve and match the circumstances if you want to make a success of things. So it's not about, one thing I'm very, very mindful of is not selling anyone a dream.
Yeah.
I said it at the start, if I describe my journey and if people see it, it's quite unique. You're not likely to have that same set of circumstances or the same set of opportunities if you go into some other business. I don't want to say, oh yeah, self-employment's the way, everybody should do it because they'll be able to go to Hajj in 12 months' time. No, you're probably not going to, because that's what the norm is.
Yeah. How, obviously, you just mentioned you had your 3 kids and then you went into self-employment and opening a business. How important has your wife been in this whole situation?
Oh, massive support. Alhamdulillah, I've been blessed to have such a supporting wife. She's gonna love listening to this. I'd say to her, regardless, that look, alhamdulillah, my wife, when she does work, is out of shock, out of interest, and she's got her own business now. So mashallah, she's had it for 5 years. She's doing fantastically well with that. But when I thought about this, she comes from a family of business people. I don't. Funnily enough, my dad's side of the family, definitely not business people. Some of them are, but mum's side's a bit more. But like, she comes from her dad ran businesses, her brothers ran businesses and stuff like that. One of the things she said is, when you think about running a business and having all of this freedom, you're not likely to. But I got her buy-in before I made the decision. I did say, look, I think I can do it differently, but I'm going to need to. And it might sound counterfactual to what I just said about not working 5 days and all that, but I actually said to her, I'm probably going to need to work harder
100%
than I've ever worked in my life.
100%.
But are you happy for me to do that? And she was like, listen, whatever you need to do, because I know why you want to do it. But then you still have to set those boundaries. But you have to have that buy-in. You have to have the understanding that at base level, this is going to be tough.
100%. And I agree with that. Like, having a business doesn't mean that, like, there might be times where, alhamdulillah, I'm able to do anything. You can do things on your own terms, but there'll be times like I will be working from 11 till Fajr time or whatever, and it might be even a whole week or 2 weeks. But that's just the way it is.
It is.
And
you gotta roll with it.
Yeah,
you gotta roll with the punches, right?
Yeah.
And when you're in business, you get a lot of punches thrown. You just have to roll with it. Like, you're ultimately responsible. There's no holiday, being on holiday and talk to someone else. if you need it, you need it.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important for people to understand that in the early stages, before you, even while you're scaling your business,
Yeah.
that's what happens.
Salman, it was an absolute pleasure, man. Jazakallah.
Well, yeah, barakallah feek. Thank you for having me. I absolutely enjoyed the conversation.
Inshallah, I think viewers will enjoy that as well, to be fair.